to our program, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here in Cairo.
The first question here that might come up is, what's your first impression about such a conference?
I think conferences like this that bring together Jews, Christians, and Muslims from around the world is one of the most necessary steps that can now happen in today's world. A world beset with violence and hatred, and yet people come here and try to share, learn from each other, take that sharing and that compassion back to their communities to influence people back in their countries and in their own communities about the importance of making bridges, overcoming the hatred which has existed for many years between peoples of different religious traditions. So I am a firm believer in the importance of events like this, and I think all credit is due to Al-Azhar University for organizing such an historic event here.
You talk now about certain steps that should be taken in order to be very active in upgrading the level of cultural dialogue. What kind of steps you're talking about? I mean, talking from practical perspective, we would like just to have a kind of practical steps in order to be very involved in that kind of dialogue. In your evaluation, what are the practical steps that should be taken in order to just increase the level of awareness?
I think one step that can be taken can be done by the leadership of all religious communities. This leadership has to make a firm commitment to avoid and to eliminate all critical remarks of other religious traditions from its own discourse.
What do you mean by critical remarks?
Islam in the West,
Okay.
since 9/11,
Okay.
since the advent of suicide bombing in '95, Israel and Palestine, has been pictured as a religion of violence and of hatred. And yet those religious leaders, Christians and Jews, who have participated in conferences such as this, have seen another face, have learned another view of Islam, the Islam of compassion, the Islam of pluralism of Al-Andalus, the Islam of tolerance. If they can take that view back and teach their Jewish and Christian congregants back in the United States and Great Britain, throughout Europe, it can begin to change the negative stereotypes that people in the West have of Islam. Likewise, when Muslims here in the Muslim and Arab world hear people like myself, a Jew, come and say, we oppose the oppression of the Palestinian people, we oppose the occupation in Palestine, this will begin to change negative stereotypes that Muslims and Arabs have about Jews, that we all support everything Israel is doing, which is not the case. Many of us are very firm critics, outspoken critics in our own communities, sometimes at great price, about what Israel is doing in Gaza, in Lebanon, in the West Bank, its settlement policy. All of these things we have opposed, not because we are alienated from our tradition, but because our tradition teaches us to respect human life and not to oppress other people.
Do you have any certain specific culture exchanging programs? I told you before holding such interview, I've been awarded an exchanging grant to teach and study in the United States. And one of the most important and interesting experience I found is I'm a Muslim and my supervisor is a Jew. And she was very prominent in her field, and we were actually making a kind of cultural exchanges, although we sometimes disagree with each other, but we respect each other. But I thought this is a good idea because I have a kind of certain experience to be involved over there. So why don't you have any kind of active exchanging programs?
Right. Well, one, since I'm not one of the organizers of the conference, you should really address that to Dr. Tawwab and the organizers of Al-Azhar.
But don't you have something in your...
Yes, in New York City, I am a participant in many programs which brings together Muslims, Jews, and Christians on a regular basis. For instance, for the last 3 years, in my synagogue, on the day of Yom Kippur, which is a fast day, a Ramadan day, we break that fast in the evening by inviting people from many mosques around who have been fasting.
You did?
Yeah,
Oh,
together.
okay.
So we had the first food after many hours together in the synagogue.
What's the impression of the other side? What's the impression of those who have been invited? I mean,
the Muslims are very enjoyed, to be there. The people in my congregation in the synagogue were very happy and welcoming to have Muslims come into the synagogue and do this.
oh, that's very interesting. So, do you have any kind of practical mechanisms that should be applied in the future in order to activate such concepts of tolerance?
I think there's certain ground rules that people need to approach interfaith dialogue. One is common respect. One is not to denigrate other people's tradition. 3 is not to try to convert other people, because as we know, the Holy Quran says there is no compunction, no compulsion in religion. And another rule, that's enough.
Oh, that's it. Okay. So, what would you tell your friends and your colleagues in the synagogue once you get back?
Yes.
What would you tell them about such conference, for example?
When I first started going to the Arab world, and this is my, I think, 5th or 6th conference that I've gone to, it's my 2nd in Egypt, and I've been to Doha 3 times. When I first started going, which was about 2005, people were very scared. They said, you're a Jew, you're going to be, attacked, and it's very dangerous. And when I spoke in Doha, there were 10 other Jews who were invited by the Foreign Ministry of Qatar. When I finished my remarks, the Muslims stood up and applauded, and the 10 Jews came up and started to yell at me. You understand the implications of that remark. So I felt totally safe within an Arab and Muslim environment. People